the thing about it is so much of what we hear, I think somewhere down, deep down inside, we know when it's not true. I mean, logic dictates in a certain direction, and I'm not saying that anything that looks too good to be true, the old adage, if it looks too good to be true, then it is. But I am saying that when it looks too good to be true, we need to dig a little bit deeper because there are some things out there that look too good to be true. Electricity, the automobile. I mean, there's all kinds of things that looked way too good to be true before they came out. So, we don't want to just dismiss them. But at the same time, if we use our brains on a lot of this stuff, we can see that some of what we're being told is not true. It's like Nelson brought up earlier about the 0% financing. Now, I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm sure that probably most of you have not seen the financial statement of an automobile manufacturer, but I bet you can still answer this question. Do you think that the majority of their profits come from manufacturing of automobiles or financing those automobiles? How do they do that at 0%? Volume? That doesn't work, does it? I mean, it's just, it's logically there's a problem there, and this is typically what happens. Let's say we've got a deal, and I'm going to use it as a published rebate. The thing about it is there's always a rebate, whether it's published or not. Whenever we've got a reduced, some special interest rate, there's always a rebate associated with it. And many times, like I say, that's in-house, behind the scenes, but sometimes it's published, like this one was. So we've got a $35,000 car that has either 0% or a $4,000 rebate. Okay, so get me a payment calculator. So we've got a minus $35,000 for the car. In the future, we hope to have zero. We're going to make these payments monthly and end of period. At 0% over 48 months, it's $729.17. Let's make sure that we've got the right number there. So let's take that 729.17, and we're going to go up here and look at it from a rate standpoint. So we'll prove it in reverse. Let's put in a present value of minus 35,000. Change it to monthly and end of period. And this is over 48 months. Okay, 0%, right? Okay, now, the only way to really figure this out is think of it in outside terms. If I choose not to use GMAC, Ford Motor Credit, whatever Toyota's and whoever else's is, and instead go to my banker, how much money do I have to borrow from my banker? $31, exactly. 31,000, right? Okay, so 31,000. Change the deal. Let's say that my banker charged me the same payment that GMAC was going to charge me. That's 729 over 48 months. Now, the truth in lending statement from my banker, he would have telling me he was charging me 6.08. Somehow GMAC can call that same payment zero. Is there any difference? At the end of 48 months, I'm paying $729.17 every month. At the end of the time frame, do I get my car in both scenarios? And it's the same. 729 to my banker is the same as 729 to GMAC. So why in the world is it legal for GMAC to call that zero when my banker has to call it 6.08%? What happened here? What happened was the manufacturing division said, we need to sell this car for $31,000. We can pay all our guys, and we can make a profit on it. Then the finance department got a hold of it and said, hey, look, we got a gimmick here. We're going to add $4,000 worth of interest to the price of the car up front, and we're going to tell people they get 0% financing, and if we don't finance it through us, we're going to take that off. It's just a game. And logically, doesn't it make sense? How in the world could they get most of their profits from 0%? I mean, as big as GMAC is, as big as Ford is, why wouldn't they just become a bank? I mean, why mess around with with cars. And the difference is they're not making 0% or 2.9 or 1.9 or whatever their deals are. Okay? Make sense? All right. So back on topic a little bit. So we looked at the funding calculator earlier and saw the rate of return on the life insurance contract. But the thing about it is, whenever we're making a comparison between assets, we have to remember that most other assets are all or assets, whereas a life insurance policy is an and asset. And what do I mean by that? I can put money into my qualified plan or into real estate or into a CD or wherever else. But because of the loan provisions built into my life insurance contract, I can put money into my life insurance contract and I can put it into the market or into a real estate deal or whatever else it is that I want to do. But it's the order that I do it that makes it important. If I put it in a place that's locked, I can't come back and do it the other way around. So whenever I'm looking at the returns on a life insurance policy against some other asset, the reality is I'm looking at it as the minimums of that life insurance contract against the maximums of everything else. My 401k can never be any more than whatever I eke out of the market, right? But my life insurance policy has some guarantees in it, and I have access to the cash, so when that opportunity of a lifetime comes along, I have a place to get cash to make that happen. How do I quantify that? How do I put a dollar amount on what that value is for having access to cash? I can't. Okay? I mean, it's as big as our imagination, whatever we can come up with. So I'm looking at the minimums against the maximums. Right here, I want to start to look just to give an idea, maybe, of some of the things that we might be able to do. And along through this, the other thing that I want to do is, Nelson said that becoming your own banker is all about a product, right? That's pretty good. Nobody in here agreed with me, so you are listening. Good. Okay, it's not about a product, it's about a process, isn't it? Does it take a life insurance contract in order to do the becoming your banker strategy? If I apply this strategy to my shoebox, which really is the same as my savings account, CD, or anything else, right? With current rates, could I make that better than by applying the strategy to it? Okay, so let's look at that. And I want to start from that standpoint. So let's put a shoebox in here. So let's say that I've got $10,000 a year that I'm putting into my shoebox/checking account at 0%. And at the same time, I'm paying 8% car loan. And I'm buying cars. So let's say I'm buying $30,000 cars. I'm going to buy the first one in another 4 years. I'll buy 6 cars. And I'll repay these over 4 years. Let's make this, that's fine. And I'm going to pay back, go ahead and put a market loan rate in there at 8%. Yeah. Okay, so I'm paying my banker $9,058 a year in order to have my cars. As soon as this one's paid off, I trade it in. I get enough trade-in value to cover the base, and I'm borrowing another $35,000 on top of that for the next car, and this just continues on. It didn't affect this. At the end of this time frame, I end up with $300,000 and 6 cars purchased over this time frame that have been traded and on through the line. Now I decide I haven't learned enough to go to hear if Dave has any enlightening news for me. So I'm going to go listen to Dave Ramsey again. And Dave gives me the same advice. He says, you know what? Everybody knows cash has no value. Here you are with your shoebox and 0. What in the world are you paying your banker 8% for? You can take money right out of here. Avoid all that interest cost. So we do that. And change that to account cash. And thanks to Dave's help, I'm now down to $120,000. Okay? Well, what is I know it's not the first. I don't know what law it is actually of banking. It's about the third, I believe. What's one of the most important ones? Don't steal the peas. Okay. Become an honest banker. Here's the thing. Do you think more highly of your banker than you do of your family? I mean, that's kind of rough, obviously, because we don't think of it in those terms. But the reality is, I was willing to pay my banker $9,058, and now I'm not willing to take that money and put it back in my own account for my family. Instead, I'm blowing that. Don't my actions show that I like my banker better than I do myself? What if we decide not to steal the peas and we pay back the car dollars that we've taken out of here and we change this to zero? Well, I put that back in. I end up with my 300,000. I mean, that's better than what I was before, but am I being an honest banker at this point? Again, I was willing to pay my banker what's that? That's it. Barely. There you go. All right. So, to really be an honest banker, don't I need to be paying myself at least as much as I would be willing to pay my banker? And if I do that, then what's going to happen is I'm going to shift some dollars to my side of the ledger. And now the $37,383 that would have gone to my banker is in my pocket over this time frame. Have I made my shoebox more efficient? Have I gotten out from underneath the control of my banker? All right, well, I see that we've got this account, and every 4 years is the only time we need the money. So could we maybe lock this up in a CD for 4 years and maybe get something for it? Maybe rates will get reasonable. Maybe we could get 2% again on a 4-year CD. So let's do that. Let's change our earnings rate to 2, and we can see it push us up to 451,000. But do we have to pay income tax on the earnings off that CD annually? All right. So let's put in a tax bracket, say 35%. So that's still pretty good. We've got $406,924 down here. And we have our cars paid for. And we don't have to answer to our banker. We don't even have to take them to lunch anymore, do we? Okay. It was funny. I was talking to some people in this last training that I'd done in Houston, and we had some people from the northern Minnesota, North Dakota area, a lot of farming land up there, and they talk about the amount of money that these farmers are borrowing, and they've gotten in this cycle of they were told you don't want to pay any tax on these dollars, so instead, if you'll just buy equipment, you're okay. So these guys have, $2 million combines, and they're replacing them every single year because somebody told them they didn't want to pay any tax, and so they're just wasting money here. And then the result is they have to go see their banker at least once a week and sit down with them and talk to them in order to get him to give them seed money when it comes in time because they're just totally under the whip. All right. What if, and I know this sounds way out there, what if we use the loan provision provided us by our mutual life insurance carrier, and instead of doing this, what if we borrowed money from my life insurance carrier and financed these cars? Well, let's see. Let's load in the life insurance values. And if I do that, now I'm up to $540,766. How could that be? Because Dave told me a life insurance policy couldn't do more than 2% return. Do I have to pay income tax on the earnings on that account every year? So if I eliminate my tax bracket, actually I've got $706,927. Did I spend any more than I did on my shoebox or on my CD? Do I have any fewer cars than I would have had the other way around? how could that be an asset that's looked at like needle-nosed Ned? And it's because of lack of understanding. It's not just a lack of understanding. And here's what you have to really go away with, and that is it's not the general public that doesn't understand. It's the insurance companies and the people at the insurance companies and the people that are selling life insurance. That's the reason that Universal Life came out, that caused people so much trouble when those policies came apart, and other things along those lines. It was all creation from people that had no clue the terrific tool that they already had. But life insurance, permanent life insurance, is not nearly sexy enough. And that's a big part of it. What did Nelson say a minute ago that happens in the university? All these MBAs come out and they try to make everything more complex than it has to be. It's simple. It's logical. It makes sense. But as long as we keep it in that perspective. So here we're moving towards the maximums. And clearly, well, let me ask you this. When you go talk to your banker, or before you talk to your banker, as you pay your loan back to your banker, you're almost automatically entitled to more money, aren't you? No? Home equity line of credits, those haven't dried up, have they? How many people were left hanging on that deal? Oh, sorry. It is showing it. Sorry. 753,000. We understated it. Oh, wait a second, Kim. That's not right, though, either. We need to put 5% loan rate over here. 702. So we're back to where we were. Sorry. A mere 702. Only 300,000 better than the CD. Okay. So I forgot what R was. Yes. Here, what we have, as we pay those loans back, we're automatically entitled to more money, unlike what happens with our banker. Why is it that Nelson calls this the infinite banking? Because as it comes out and goes back in, there's more available to do the same thing with over and over and over again. We don't have to go through a ton of papers on whether or not we qualify for this loan or whether we have good credit. It doesn't matter because it's our money that stands behind this loan. Now, based on that, are there other things that I might be able to do with this money besides just buy my cars? What if I had a business and let's say that this business needed some equipment. It needed some telephone equipment, computer upgrades, computer wiring, internet, all those kind of things. The problem with that kind of loan for a business is the banks hate them because there's no collateral. I mean, their only choice is what, rip wires out of the walls? I don't think it's going to be worth much after that. So there's no collateral there, and they really won't work with you. But there is a group that will. They're called leasing companies. All right? Now, the leasing companies are very adamant that what they're providing is not a loan. And they will say that over and over again. You give them the lease amount, the amount of money that you need to buy your IT equipment, and they will calculate a payment that you'll pay for 60 months and then $1 buyout at the end. What rate is that? There is no rate. This is a lease payment. It's a separate deal. There's a reason that they do that. But let's say that I could talk my banker into loaning me the money for this equipment. I want to buy $50,000 6 years out, and I've got plenty of money in my policy to do that, to stand behind it. The payment is going to be $1,425 about per month for 60 months. At the end of the time frame, I owe $1. My banker would call that 23.5%. So I know it's just a lease payment, but the reality is my lease company charging me 23.5% for the privilege of using their money for 60 months? Why do they say it's not? Because I think probably this starts to fall under usury laws somewhere. So that's why they're not going to talk about a lease payment. And the other reason is if you figure this out after you've started this lease, It doesn't make any difference. You can call them and say, hey, give me the buyout number on this lease. Okay, the buyout number is the sum of the remaining payments, which makes the cost go even higher than the 23.5%. But I think it's safe to say that we could use 23.5% as a guideline for what the market would be, the market rate on buying equipment. So let's do that. We're going to buy a $50,000 piece of equipment or technology upgrade in 6 years. We're going to do it one time. We're going to pay it off over 5 years. We're going to pay it off at 23.5%, which is what the market says it is. That doesn't affect anything that I have here at this point in time. Now, if I choose to use some cheap money from my insurance company, could I do that? Could I have a policy personally, loan money to my business, and get them to pay me the 23.5%? Would that be out of line? The IRS might think so, and so you want to make sure you have documentation in your corporate minutes. But as long as I can show, hey, my lease payment was going to be $1,425, so this is not out of line, then it makes it okay. So here, if I change this, look what happens. I bump this by spending exactly the same amount of money I would to my lease company. I go from $670,000. I get my equipment, and in over 30 years, it grows to $768,000. So $98,000 ended up on my side of the ledger. That's real money. I got the equipment. I spent the same amount of money I would with the leasing company, and the result is because I used my life insurance policy as collateral with my insurance company in between, the combination of that differential and the dividends gave me an extra $98,000. When I add my cars back, I'm at $800 for a difference total here of $130,000 that otherwise would have gone to my banker, my lease company, wherever else. And just because I'm in a position of capital, it allows me to start being able to take advantage of financing the things that I use in the most efficient manner.